Something extraordinary is unfolding across the Atlantic, and Europe is not staying silent. In a move that stunned diplomats, rattled NATO allies, and reignited one of the most controversial geopolitical ideas of the modern era, Donald Trump has once again turned global attention toward Greenland. What many once dismissed as a joke, a provocation, or a negotiating tactic has now returned as something far more serious, a strategic signal that has sent shockwaves through European capitals. Within hours, reactions poured in, European leaders expressed outrage, analysts warned of long-term consequences, social media exploded with disbelief. And behind closed doors, diplomats scrambled to understand what this moment actually means, not just for Greenland, not just for Denmark, but for the balance of power between the United States and Europe itself. This is not just about land. This is about influence, security, and a rapidly changing world order. Donald Trump has never been a conventional political figure. He doesn't follow diplomatic scripts, he doesn't soften language for allies, and he doesn't retreat easily from ideas once dismissed as controversial. When Trump signaled renewed interest in Greenland, whether through public remarks, strategic messaging, or quiet diplomatic pressure, it wasn't framed as nostalgia or symbolism. It was framed as national interest. To Trump and those around him, Greenland represents far more than ice and geography. It is a gateway, a strategic anchor, a military advantage, a future resource hub, and most importantly, a position of dominance in the Arctic, a region rapidly becoming the next great geopolitical battleground. Europe understood this immediately, and Europe did not like it. Greenland may look remote on a map, but in modern geopolitics, it sits at the center of everything that matters. As Arctic ice melts, new shipping routes are opening, untapped natural resources are becoming accessible, and military positioning in the far north is becoming essential. Russia is expanding its Arctic presence, China is increasing its economic influence, and the United States is reassessing its long-term strategic posture. Greenland lies directly in the middle of all of this. It already hosts critical U.S. military infrastructure, provides early warning systems for missile defense, sits between North America and Europe, and offers influence over Arctic routes that could define the next century of global trade. Trump's move was not impulsive, it was calculated, and Europe knows it. European leaders did not hide their anger. The reaction was swift, sharp, and unusually unified. Politicians across the continent accused Trump of destabilizing alliances, disrespecting sovereignty, and treating Europe like a bargaining chip rather than a partner. Denmark, which governs Greenland, was particularly vocal, emphasizing that Greenland is not for sale, not negotiable, and not a pawn in global power games. But the outrage went far beyond Copenhagen. France warned of dangerous unilateralism. Germany raised concerns about alliance trust. Nordic countries spoke openly about regional security risks. This was not just diplomatic irritation. It was fear that the United States under Trump was willing to rewrite the rules of Western cooperation. For decades, Europe has relied on predictability from Washington. Even during disagreements, the framework of cooperation remained intact. Trump threatens that framework. By revisiting Greenland, Trump reopened an uncomfortable question Europe hoped was buried. Can Europe rely on the United States to respect European sovereignty when strategic interests collide? This move didn't just challenge Denmark. It challenged Europe's sense of control. Because if Greenland can be openly discussed as a strategic acquisition, what else becomes negotiable? Arctic policy, NATO leadership, trade routes, defense commitments. Europe sees a slippery slope and Trump sees leverage. Trump's worldview is simple but ruthless. Nations pursue interests. Power matters, geography matters, hesitation is weakness. From that perspective, Greenland isn't controversial, it's obvious. Supporters of Trump argue that previous administrations ignored long-term strategic threats. They see Greenland as a necessary counterbalance to Russian and Chinese expansion in the Arctic. They argue that Europe has failed to secure the region effectively, and they believe Trump is doing what others were too cautious to even discuss. In Trump's playbook, shock is a tool. Disruption creates leverage, and leverage forces negotiation. Caught in the middle of this geopolitical storm is Greenland itself. The people of Greenland have long pushed for greater autonomy and control over their future. They are not eager to become a symbol in a superpower struggle. Greenland's leadership has repeatedly emphasized self-determination. They do not want to be traded between Washington and Europe. They want investment, respect, and agency, not geopolitical tug-of-war. Trump's move has complicated that dream because when giants argue, smaller nations feel the pressure first. Perhaps the most dangerous consequence of this moment is what it does to NATO. The alliance depends on trust. Trump's Greenland maneuver reignited fears that U.S. commitment to collective decision-making is conditional. European officials privately worry that strategic surprises could weaken deterrence. Public unity matters, predictability matters. And Trump thrives on unpredictability. This isn't just about Greenland. It's about whether NATO can survive in an era where America prioritizes dominance over diplomacy. While Europe protests and Washington debates, two other powers are watching very closely. Russia sees opportunity in European division. Any crack in transatlantic unity benefits Moscow's Arctic ambitions. China sees leverage. Beijing has invested heavily in Arctic infrastructure and resources. If Europe and the United States clash, China can position itself as a quieter, more stable alternative partner. Trump's move does not happen in a vacuum. It reshapes calculations globally. Analysts are now openly asking whether the Arctic is becoming the next frontline of global competition. Military bases, resource control, shipping dominance, surveillance infrastructure, all of it converges in the far north. Greenland sits at the center of this emerging contest. Trump's shock move did not start this race, but it accelerated it. And Europe feels unprepared. Inside the United States, the move has ignited fierce debate. Supporters praise Trump's boldness. Critics call it reckless. Lawmakers argue over legality, diplomacy, and optics. But even critics admit one thing: Trump forced the world to pay attention. Once again, he changed the conversation. No one expects Greenland to change hands overnight. That was never the point. The point is pressure. The point is signaling. The point is asserting dominance in a region that will define the future. Europe now faces uncomfortable choices: push back harder and risk alienating Washington, attempt quiet diplomacy and risk appearing weak, or accelerate its own Arctic strategy independent of the United States. None of these options are easy, and Trump knows it. History shows that geopolitical shifts rarely begin with war. They begin with statements, proposals, and ideas once considered unthinkable. Trump's Greenland move may never result in ownership, but it has already changed alliances, exposed tensions, and forced Europe to confront a reality it hoped to avoid: a United States that plays by different rules. Europe erupted not because Trump moved troops or signed papers. Europe erupted because Trump reminded the world of something deeply unsettling. In an age of rising competition, even allies must protect themselves. And the Arctic, frozen, distant, and long overlooked, may soon become the hottest battlefield on Earth.